Back here on CBS Sports HQ, presented by Bonobos, pants with the perfect fit. Back here with Bryant McFadden Barrett Sallee. What a game we saw in East Lansing. Wake Forest transfer Kenneth Walker III leads the nation in rushing yards per game, had himself a day. I mean, BMAC. He rushed for nearly 200 yards, 5 touchdowns. He entered with plus 1,800 odds to win the Heisman, and they're going to improve after today. If you consider last season, Devontae Smith preseason, he wasn't even on the odds, and he won the Heisman. I mean, perhaps we have 2 years in a row. And I know we're going to talk about Caleb Williams in a bit, but Kenneth Walker III put on an absolute show in East Lansing, BMAC.
No question. I think he's been dominating the entire season, but now the nation is starting to see what he means to Michigan State. Now, when you talk about the Heisman conversation, clearly they need to continue to win ball games for him to have a legit shot in winning the award. But clearly, he's one of the top running backs in the college football, him and Bijan Robinson. Robinson has lost a little bit of his leverage because they've been losing ball games down there in Austin. But what Walker did today, he should have had more yards, guys. He only had 23 carries. He should have had 30-plus carries because they could not stop him at all. A few yards away from 1,000 yards already. He just single-handedly just won this ball game for Michigan State. They still have a tough way to go to be able to achieve some major goals. They got Penn State. They got Ohio State left on the schedule as well. But if they can continue to win ball games, and he has a huge emphasis in their success, his name definitely should be in the thick of things when you talk about the Heisman conversation and most importantly, getting an invite to New York City.
Yeah, I think for Kenneth Walker, he has to go undefeated. Michigan State has to go undefeated. We saw that with Devontae Smith. If you're a player that's not a quarterback, you have to be on a national championship caliber team, and you have to be on that team as the sole focal point, and he is for Michigan State. But if they go out there and lose to Ohio State and don't make the Big Ten championship game, it's over. Whether that's fair or not, it's over. Now, with that said, is he one of the most outstanding players in college football? Absolutely, he is. I mean, the Heisman is interesting because it does not give you any definitions. It's up to the voter how to sort of rate everybody. And, you know, for me, for my ballot, I like to consider value. And I don't think there's any doubt that Kenneth Walker's value to Michigan State is up there with the tops of anybody in the country, because without Kenneth Walker, Michigan State is not in this point. But it's going to take an extraordinary set of circumstances for him to win the Heisman Trophy. Now, should he be in New York City? Absolutely. If he's not in New York City, that's a crime.
Yeah, and Kenneth Walker III, one of those guys that came from the transfer portal from Mel Tucker, who's embraced the transfer portal and now the way college football is done. And it's been quite the turnaround for Michigan State. Mel Tucker went 2-5 in his first season, now 8-0 this season. He's rebuilt the program. And Barrett, I don't know what the odds are, but he looks like perhaps the next coach at LSU.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be in that mix. You can toss some others in there, too. They'll ask Lane. They'll go for Billy Napier, whatever. But, yeah, Mel Tucker's certainly in that mix. He has ties to the SEC from his time at Georgia. He understands the connections and what it takes to win at a high level. And I think at LSU, he can bring in that discipline that maybe they don't have, and that's been maybe the problem over the course of the last year and a half under Ed Orgeron. So, yeah, I think right now, if you're an LSU fan, if you're a booster, if you watch that game, you're thinking, let's pull out that checkbook. Let's see what we can do here, because right now, Mel Tucker, I think in terms of being the front runner, he's 1A, 1B, or 1C. Let's put it that way. And that's a really good place to be if you want to get that job.
Yeah, I think Mel Tucker will have quite a few options. And it's sad for Michigan State because this story-like season they're currently having, they might have to continue to try to have success without Mel Tucker going forward years down the line, because other universities with more tradition will come calling. They will have a big-time check waiting for him. And it's up to Mel Tucker. Mel Tucker has been a quality coach for quite some time throughout his coaching career, not just in college football, throughout his time in the NFL. And he's shown the ability to recruit because, you know, Kenneth Walker was a transfer from Wake Forest. They had some other notable transfers there at Michigan State that have been playing pretty good football for their team. So he relates to transfers. He relates to high school recruits. And if you're able to give Mel Tucker the resources that he would have down there at LSU, along with the backing, man, it would definitely become more entertaining in the SEC West in years to come if he is the head coach. But right now, he's only focused on trying to complete this task. But you better believe when the season is done, he will have quite a few options to consider when it comes to coaching elsewhere outside of Michigan State.
BMAC, you know where Mel Tucker's from?
I guess somewhere in Ohio.
Cleveland, Ohio.
Cleveland. Cleveland. Yeah, it figured.
Yep.
It figured.
Good people come out of Cleveland, right?
Everything, Hakeem, everything goes back to Cleveland, right?
Look, Mel Tucker's great. I mean, I think it'd be great for LSU, right?
Yeah, but we had to find a way to get Cleveland inside this segment. I can tell you this much. You won't talk about Cleveland tomorrow, though.
Oh, I will be.
We know that much.
Oh, I will be, because I mean, bring it. Just
No,
like
you won't.
Georgia's defense, the Browns' defense will be bringing on Ben Roethlisberger. We'll break that down tomorrow. You got EK, you got Joe Musso for that. Right now, we're talking about Michigan State. They snapped a 7-game losing streak against AP top 10 opponents. That's big time, because all of our guys were on Michigan State on the pregame show today. Meantime, Michigan now 2-13 against top 10 opponents under Jim Harbaugh. Barrett, we know Jim Harbaugh has had trouble winning the big games, and this proves another spot for him that he cannot win a big game.
Yeah, it does. And I think obviously fans and administrators are frustrated with this. It's nothing new. Obviously, that's why he took the renegotiated contract last year. And, I think the sting of this is going to last for a little while. And I'm going to try to paint a little pretty picture for Michigan, right? Cade McNamara got into a shootout and was almost successful. That was the first time we've seen an explosive offense at Michigan in quite some time. So even in the loss, there's that. I know there are no moral victories in rivalries. I get that. But that's a sign that things are actually kind of improving in Michigan, even though they fell to what I think all of us would agree is a better team. Now, if you can go into Ohio State and you can win that game or at least compete with Ohio State, that's another step in the right direction. So I think right now you're sort of teetering on the edge of, do you want to get divorced or do you want to get remarried? Because right now you're kind of separated or on the verge of separation, but you can still rekindle that love if you have some success with the offense and you give yourself a chance versus Ohio State. So I know Michigan fans are upset about this right now. This still was an impressive game from Michigan in a variety of different ways, especially their quarterback, especially a dynamic offense that got into a shootout and succeeded by the most part. It got out of its comfort zone and still competed in a game against a better opponent.
Yeah, B-Mac, Cade McNamara threw for nearly 400 yards. I'm curious, though, if the back and forth of Cade McNamara and then J.J. McCarthy coming in, did that disrupt the tempo and the flow for McNamara and the Wolverines?
Yeah, I think so. I don't like when you insert a player and you take another player out because it's hard to establish a rhythm for the individual player and for the entire offense. It bothered me when I was a player at Florida State before I became the consistent starter. I was going in and out. Like, Coach, I can't get into a flow of the ball game because I'm in for a few plays, a few series, and I'm on the sideline. It's hard to do that. So I know it has to be extremely hard to do that when you're playing the quarterback position. That's a rhythm-like position for you as a player and for the entire offense. I don't know why coaches do that so much because you have to put yourself in that player's shoes. How can you get into a flow of a ball game? You're always in, you're always out. And clearly for me, I think that hampered some of the success that we probably could have seen. But Michigan, listen, you have a 16-point lead, against a run-oriented team. You're supposed to win this ball game. Watching this game at home, everyone knew, I knew who was getting the ball for Michigan State. You couldn't stop it. Barrett talked about last year, Mel Tucker went 2-5. Guess what? One of those wins came against Michigan. He's undefeated against Michigan in 2 years. He's undefeated against Michigan. That's unacceptable. They went 2-5 last year, won 2 ball games. You cannot allow one of those wins to come against Michigan. It's unacceptable. So me personally, Michigan just bad teams find a way to lose games, important games. And I'm not saying Michigan's a bad team, but the moment was too much for them. And at some point in time, you got to put the microscope, not just on the players, but on the staff. You got to find a way to win this 16-point lead, guys. Really? Nah, unacceptable.
Michigan loses its first game of the season. Meantime, Michigan State 8-0 for the first time since 2015, the year they started 9-0 and went to the college football playoff. Speaking of trying to get to the college football playoff, Oklahoma trying to get back there. And another late entry to the Heisman race. Oklahoma quarterback Caleb Williams tosses 6 touchdowns against Texas Tech. Williams, the third player in Oklahoma history with at least 6 passing touchdowns, 0 zippy interceptions in a game, joins Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield. Those guys win Heisman trophies. Caleb Williams, what do you think about his chances to win the Heisman Trophy, Barrett?
They're slim. It's not none. But, I think right now with Caleb Williams, if you're going to make a Heisman run, you got to look at the competition, right? You have Matt Corral as a quarterback. You have Bryce Young as a quarterback. Kenneth Walker, certainly in the mix. He's a running back, though. It's not a running back-driven award. Jordan Davis would probably get my number one vote right now, but he's not going to win it. I think we all know that. So the competition around Caleb Williams right now is not necessarily as thick and as meaty as it has been in years past in this race. So I think it's a perfect situation for him, knowing that if you're going to win the Heisman, you don't have a lot of quarterbacks to deal with, and you're also in an offense, like you said, that can put up video game numbers. You are putting up video game numbers, and voters can see if you turn that offense around that you're the reason that the offense turned itself around. So I think there are a lot of factors at play. It's a long shot. It's not a no shot. But right now, if we'd have talked about Caleb Williams being in the Heisman Trophy race a month ago, we've been called crazy. But he's there right now. I don't think there's any doubt. He's on the periphery at least.
BMAC, we've been asking all season for Oklahoma to win by a large margin. Finally, they do. Granted, it's against Texas Tech, who just fired their head coach, but they win by 31 points in this game. So will the Sooners be a part of the top 4 when the first set of college football rankings come out on Tuesday?
Yeah, I think so. They've had some scary games so far this season, but they dominated Texas Tech in today's matchup. You talked about Caleb defensively. They came up with some huge critical stops as well. So, yeah, I don't see why they should be on the outside looking in when it comes to the top 4 playoff spots. For Oklahoma, it's not just about, I think the consensus would have said it's their conference to lose. When you look at the Big 12, any significant competition, not really. You might have a few teams here, Baylor or somebody like that, but Oklahoma's the most talented team in the Big 12. It's all about what they do when they get into the playoffs. That's when the season starts for Oklahoma, in my opinion. But, yes, they should be in the top 4.
Got a tough road ahead. Baylor, Iowa State, and Oklahoma State, but for now, they remain unbeaten. A big win against Texas Tech on this day. Barrett Sallee, Bryant McFadden joining us here on CBS Sports HQ. Great conversation. Appreciate the breakdown, man. And hey, for all things college football, check out the Cover 3 podcast. Host Chip Patterson, joined by Tom Fornelli, Danny Cannell, Bud Elliott, as they take you from National Signing Day to the National Championship with in-depth analysis. Every week during the season, you'll get picks against the spread. Loyal listeners tell you it's one of the best podcasts on the market. The Cover 3 podcast. Download and subscribe today.